everybody, and thanks for coming to my Pre-Viva presentation. Okay, today I want to present my Pre-Viva. The title of my thesis is The Impacts of Public Participation on Public Budgeting Process in Kurdistan. First of all, I want to give you the background study of Kurdistan. Actually, Kurdistan is a large country. It's located, this is Turkey, and this is Armenia, this is Iraq, and this is Syria, that one is Iraq. This is a big country, larger than Malaysia, but the country has been divided by the great powers after the First World War. So I'm not going to focus on all parts of Kurdistan because not all of them are free, are under control of the Kurdistan regional government. What I focus is Kurdistan region of Iraq or southern Kurdistan. This part is under the full control of the KRG, Kurdistan Regional Government. So my focus will be on the three cities that you see here. Kurdistan, the population of Kurdistan is 5 million, and the main source of the budget is oil. Previously, we received the oil budget from Baghdad. We have the share of 70% of the national budget in Iraq. But since last year, they cut off all budget, so we depend on all budget. We export oil, and we receive the budget. So oil constitutes almost 90% of all budget. The rest 10% comes from the tax and customs. So we have a lot of oil, which is 45 billion barrels of oil in reserve. It's already proven. This one is the table of the budget in Kurdistan. As you see here, we had $2 billion in 2014, but in 2004. In 2014, we had $15 billion. So the change is very, the numbers change very rapidly, okay? Therefore, if we compare the services in 2006, which was $3 billion, and 2014, we don't see much differences in the change of the services, because when the budget increases, your service is supposed to increase as well. But according to my observation, according to my study, the change is not too much. And this is due to the lack of public participation. How I get the idea of public participation? During my master public finance class, I conducted a research on public participation, and I took Turkey as the case study. But when I studied about Turkey, I found that the main issue in Turkey's public expenditure is the lack of public participation. So I thought about the same issue in Kurdistan, and I observed the issue, and I read about the issue, and I found out that we have the same problem. The budget is not properly implemented and allocated for the projects, and it's due to the lack of public participation. Okay? So some authors believe that there's zero public participation in Kurdistan. Others believe it's a lack of public participation. So this is my main problem, as you see here. Okay, based on that, I created 3 research questions, as you see here. And basically 3 research objectives. So first of all, why is capital budgeting process is lack of public deliberation? Second one is the outcome of communication on capital budgeting process and the outcome of information and transparency on capital budgeting process. So this is my model. I have 3 research questions, 3 research objectives, and 3 research hypotheses. Okay, as you see here, and my hypothesis is based on this one. This is my model. I have adopted this model through the use of theory of participatory budgeting model. Participatory budgeting was first used in Porto Alegre in Brazil, where citizens collectively make the decision over the budget priorities. And communication rationality. In the communication rationality theory, citizens are seen as the generator of the decision making, and through the exchange of knowledge, skills, and expertise, they are making the final decision of the budget, or the public policy, sorry. Deliberative democracy theory, this is a particular approach of democracy where talks and discussion become the center of the decision making. Okay, this is my hypothesis. And the scope of my study, actually I didn't cover all budgeting. I focused on the first stage of the budget because mainly we have 4 main stages. This is the stages of budgeting. So I focus only on the first stage because the citizens' influence on the first stage is more than other stages. This one is about parliament. Parliament is responsible for that, and this one government, and this one all together. Okay? citizens can participate in all these stages, but the first one is more important because they are setting agenda, setting priorities, and making the final decision, preparing the proposal. Besides, I focused on capital investment budget. We have two main types of budgeting. One of them is recurrent budget, which is for the salary of the government. The second one is capital investment budget. This one is for the services, for the physical assets of the government, the services that government provides for the citizen. So I focused on the second one. Operational definition, I defined those terms. Chapter 2 is about, this one proposed by my supervisor. He said that provide a background study of Kurdistan, because when somebody read your thesis to understand what's Kurdistan, because actually Kurdistan is emerging and it's not known for many people. So I provided background study also about the government budget. I explained what's government budget, what are the cycles of the budgeting, how the government is allocated budget for the projects and for the salaries. So I defined all this, and then I introduced the KRG Ministry of Planning, which is responsible for the capital investment budget. And finally, I discussed consultative service delivery program. As I told you that some authors have said that there's zero participation in Kurdistan public budget, but when I collected my data, I found out that this statement is not true, because there's some source of public participation, and we also have the consultative service delivery program. So I collected some primary data on this. As you see here, the government have implemented some sort of participatory program. More than 168,000 people have benefited from that program, which was also public participation in budgeting. So there is some sort of public participation. Okay, this is my literature review. My methodology, I use mixed method, quantitative and qualitative. So I use sequential design. I conducted my questionnaire before my interview, and to target the population of 384, according to Magmoris, who says that when your population is between 1 million to 10 million, you need to distribute 384 questionnaires. So in order to target this one, I distributed 465 questions, but I couldn't return all back. I returned back 402, and out of this 402, 387 were valid for the test, for the final test, and my respondents were ordinary citizens. For the interview, I used semi-structured interview and face-to-face interview. Almost 9 of my interviews were face-to-face interview. One of them was email interview because I met him and he told me, come back tomorrow, we can do the interview. Now I have meeting, so the day after I went back and he told me, sorry, I cannot provide the answer like this. I cannot, my voice, I don't want my voice to be recorded. So if you are still insisted, just send me your question by email and I'll provide you an answer. He was the advisor of the minister. So I sent him an answer, my questions, and he provided me the answer by email. The other one was by Skype. So one by Skype, one by email, 9 face-to-face interview. This is for my data collection. For data analysis, I use Excel first. Excel sheet I use to input my data, then I run through SPSS. And for my qualitative data, I use ViVa. I coded and noded my data first through ViVa, then I manually analyzed my data. Okay, before I distribute my data, I went for pilot study, and all my variables were valid and reliable. This is the result of my quantitative finding. The ages, most of them were ranging between 26 to 45, and most of them were government employees, because out of 5 people, 1 person is government employee in my country. And almost 69% of the budget goes for the salaries. So this is not surprising for me, and most of them were degree, and almost half of them were from Erbil. Erbil is the capital of Kurdistan region. Outliers. Outliers, when you have outliers, when you run for regression analysis, and when you run for coefficient correlations, your result will be different if you have outlier, or if you have normality case, if your data is not normally distributed. So I ran for outliers, and I found there's one extreme case I deleted, and all these minor cases I also deleted in order to get the better accurate, in order to provide accurate result. So this is before and this is after. Here's clean. For normality, we have several ways to test for normality. Kolmogorov, Shemirov, skewness, kurtosis, and also we can visually inspect whether our data is normally distributed or not. But according to this, if our data is normal, the significant value is supposed to be bigger than 0.05. But here, as you see, it's 0, okay? That means my data is deviated from the normal line, okay? So it's not normally distributed based on that. But it's normal, your data to be not normally distributed. You don't get the normal distribution result when your sample is large. Okay, because my respondent is 387, so it's normal. So the alternative is to look to inspect for the visual inspect whether your data is normally distributed or not. So I ran for this one, as you see, the more the scores linear, the more your data is normal. As you see, the scores are fall all around the straight line. So it's not perfectly normal. If it's perfectly normal, it's like that. But it's still normal and acceptable, and it's supposed to be good. Okay? Instrument reliability, again, around for Cambridge alpha. For Cambridge alpha, your score is supposed to be 0.7 and above. So based on that, all my variables are reliable. And Pearson's correlation coefficient. This one is to describe the direction and the strength of the relationship between two numerical data. When we have a positive correlations, the change in one variable, the increase of the scores in one variable causes the increase of the scores in another variable. And for the negative correlation, is vice versa. We have the strengths of the relationship. We have relative correlation, average correlation, and strong correlation. So based on that, my findings for all variables, for all the correlations, there is a positive, significant, and strong correlations between my independent variables and dependent variables. For budget deliberation, as you see, it's more than, it's 0.5, which is positive, and which is it's strong correlations. And when you have these scores, it's indication of the significance, these stars. That means for the first one was also significant, the second one also significant, which is 6. And for the budget information, also 6.3. This is also significant. The regression analysis is to analyze and identify which variance, identify the extent in which the variance is independent variable explained by independent variable, and the level, and to elaborate the expectation, whether your expectation is right or wrong. So as you see here, the value for R is 0.6 is higher than 0.5, which is a good level of prediction. And the R squared is also good, okay? So then I go for the statistical significance through ANOVA. When your significant value is 0, that means your data is significantly distributed. Your data, your model fits your data, okay? So I found out that, yeah, my model fits my data. Okay, and this one coefficient, first of all, I look at this one better to see which variable, which independent variable contributes more in explaining dependent variable, capital budgeting process, okay? I found out that budget deliberation, which is 383, so that one contributes more in explaining dependent variable, but budget deliberation contributes less, has a least contribution. Also for the prediction, to see whether my data is statistically significant or not, we look at the significant again. When your data, when your value is bigger than 0.5, that means it's not significant, okay? But I found that it's all less than 0.5. That's why I can conclude that my data, the coefficient, has statistical significant contribution in explaining capital budgeting process. That was for my quantitative. For my qualitative, First, I try to see the extent of public participation. We have participation or not. We have good level of participation or not, or we don't have at all. So I found that we have some source of public participation, but that's not enough. The method of setting budget priority in Kurdistan, I also try to look at the methods, how the government is setting budget priority, and I found that the budget decision is centralized. Centralized not only by the ministers, but by the Ministry of Planning. They have authority to deduct, to choose, to select any project they want. So sometimes the ministry send, other ministry, land ministry send the proposal to the Ministry of Planning. The Ministry of Planning cut the budget, add project, without going back to the other ministry. So budget decision is centralized. And the factors that cause the lack of deliberation in Kurdistan. First of all, the absence of good financial system. We still have the classical public financial system, where the boss decide for everything, okay? The classical one, political parties interference is not surprising for me that I found this result, because in Kurdistan, actually, political parties interfering in all sectors of society, in all parts of life. They are interfering on everything, so public finance is part of that one. They are trying to use public finance to their interest, to increase, yeah, okay. Corruption and nepotism, when citizens participating, usually there will be less chance for corruption and nepotism. That's why the officials, they don't want citizens to engage in the policy making decisions. Budget limitation, where citizens participating in the process, the demands will increase. That's why in the absence of a budget, you cannot ask people come decide for the budget. That's why budget limitation is one of the issue of deliberation. And the lack of trust between government and locals. Government doesn't trust local people. They believe that people are lazy and they cannot decide for themselves. And this is exactly what I explained in theory X, where it believes that citizens cannot decide for themselves, so the government have to make decisions on behalf of them. And the weakness of NGOs. NGOs in the countries like Brazil, they are the bridge, okay? They bring in the citizen, they bring in the government, then the process goes on. But in Kurdistan, they don't exist. We have 2,000 NGOs in Kurdistan, but out of this 2,000, only 10 of them work in economy sector, and out of this 10, none of them working in public finance. So this is, the role is very weak. For the other finding is the second research question, when we have communication, what will happen? First of all, we decentralize the decision, okay? And it's empowerment of the citizens, and it's the process of democratization. You are creating inclusive institution where everybody participating in the decision making, and that prevents the low quality of the decision and helps the government to make the best decision over the budget priorities. And at the end, we will achieve public satisfaction. And this is the service is about. If citizens are not satisfied for the services, that means nothing for government to budgeting. So when we have budget communication, we will achieve public satisfaction and decentralization. And other finding is access to public information. Without information, public participation cannot happen. And it's rational to discuss that, to argue that information and transparency is the precondition of participatory budgeting or public participation. And when we have enough data and reports, and we know what the government is going to do, how much budget do we have, so we try to make the best decision. We try to generate new ideas, what project people need, okay? The citizen doesn't know what's the government plan, how they make decision over those alternatives. So information is very important. Without information, we cannot implement participatory budgeting. Okay, then I discussed my findings. I compared with my literature review, and I had theoretical implication, practical implication. The limitation of my study, when I was collecting my data, Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, ISIS, has attacked my city. I was collecting my data, and they were only 40 kilos from my city that time. I was collecting my data. But hopefully, in 2 days, our forces have pulled them back, so I continued my data collection. That was my main limitation. Okay, the finding, I found positive correlation between my independent variable and dependent variable. I listed 6 factors that contributes in the lack of public deliberation. And I found out there are positive relationship between communication, information, and capital budgeting decision. That was my presentation. Thanks for coming. And now, if you have any question or recommendation, I'll be more than happy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nawaz. Okay, now I'll open Q&A for the panel. The first, Dr. Sharif. Okay.
I go first.